All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Game Plan with Mike and Slater. This is going to be our first episode of one of our player evaluation and grading editions. We'll do a few of these, however many we need to get through the entire defense, and then we'll take a look at the offense after that. You know, the reason why we decided to do this is, there's a lot of talk right now. Everybody's already looking at free agency and talking mostly about the draft, but the way this works is you have to evaluate the players that you have on the team. I know it's fun to talk about the draft, but that's a while away, and you don't know what you need until you know what you have. And that's the first thing that's going to happen when we decide who the next defensive coordinator is going to be here in Dallas, is they're going to have to evaluate the team. So we're going to take it step by step for the game plan, and we'll run through some things. Slater, speaking of defensive coordinators, we've heard a lot of talk and a lot of rumors about Brian Flores. How do you feel about that? Hearing that, what do you think? What's the opinion on the scuttlebutt?
It's all fun and games, right? I think Dallas Cowboys fans always get the rumor mill of, hey, the Cowboys are going to pursue this, Cowboys are going to pursue that. But as you can tell, in even our last coaching cycle, it's one of those things until he's in the building. I necessarily don't believe it. I hope for it to be true. I think Brian Flores would be a great candidate for the Dallas Cowboys, and I think he'd be somebody who can really schematically fix everything that we have going wrong on the field. I think he's a defense coordinator that can take bad talent and take his great scheme and make a good defense, at least a top 15 defense out of it. Now, the question will be, is he willing to give up a potentially head coaching opportunity to be a defensive coordinator again? Now, if that's possible, it's probably going to have to come with money. Now, Jerry, hear me out. You pay someone some money, you get a good job. You pay someone minimum money, you get bad job. All right. So pay the man. If he's offered, he's like, man, I'm coming to Dallas, I want to do it, then you give him that contract, wherever he needs, because what Dallas needs is that defensive coordinator. So floor is back to you, sir.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's kind of where I'm at. A coach that's having success as a defensive coordinator, especially over, a period of time, a year or two, you think the next step for them is going to be a head coaching job. I don't see a lot of coaches who have ambition wanting to make a lateral move to what is kind of a mess of a defense here in Dallas. It's four different pieces of defense for four different guys. So, unfortunately, I still have this inkling that Matt Eberflus is going to be on staff, man, as much as I hate to say it, and I don't want that to happen. Mark my words, that's not what I'm looking for, but I just, knowing this front office, they could keep him around, and player evaluation is going to be huge for that. But no, I definitely would love to have Brian Flores or anybody of his caliber. Anything right now, it sounds pretty good. We're even getting some Max Crosby talk now. And
I think it's a win if Matt Eberflus is out the building. No matter what happens.
Oh, 100%.
If Matt Eberflus is out the building, I don't think it can get worse.
That's addition by subtraction, buddy.
Unless Rob Ryan comes out of retirement and decides to be our defense coordinator again. So, I don't think it gets worse.
How would you feel about something like that, like an old Rob Ryan coming out? Do you think he knows the defense and the offense well enough with this period of time and the way that the game is played now to have success?
Look, I know we're all about, in the league lately, giving older people shots that have been retired for multiple years. I know Phillip Rivers is a prime example, but I do not want that theory tested with my defensive coordinator that should be next. I want somebody who's already proven or somebody who's young and hungry and ready to learn. One of the guys we were talking about is that Detroit guy, the defense coordinator at Detroit. He has been a great example of somebody who's been able to step up the play after Aaron Glenn left. So somebody like him, I know a lot of people talk about internally who we can get. Some people talk about Al Harris. I think, unfortunately for Al Harris, and maybe to me, bridges burn is what I'm hearing. So we'll see how it goes, man. 100%. But like I said, I would like something fresh and not, just trying to make leftovers fresh again, if that makes sense.
No retreading tires, right? So I'm going to be covering for tonight's episode. And like I said, we're going to do this position by position, player by player, and then we'll do an overall position grade. We'll grade the players individually, and then we'll do an overall grade for that entire position. And I'm going to be covering the linebackers tonight. Slater, who do you have for us?
So we'll start off with the safeties tonight, man. I think we'll start off with the back end, and then we'll work our way to the cornerback position.
Awesome. So I've got 6 breakdowns here, and what we're going to do is we will show you what we have to present. We made a pretty nice chart here. It's an Excel program that we use to lay everything out so you have something to see as you listen, and you can have something to visualize. So I'm going to put that up on the screen for us now, and then you'll be able to still hear our voices as we talk over this. All right. So the very first linebacker that we're going to cover is going to be our main man, DeMarvion Overshown. As we know, DeMarvion started his first game after, I think it was like 350 days approximately of being out with an injury, and he made his first return game on week 11, I believe, versus the Raiders. So this is based on 7 games, 218 snaps. All right.
Yep.
So he had 12 stops, 22 solo tackles, 7 assists, 5 missed tackles. Not a whole lot to work off of, but we know what his run defense performance strengths, really are. He's very decisive and aggressive versus the run, especially when he's going side to side, lateral movement. I think Overshown, aside from his instincts, his biggest asset is his speed, which gets him a lot chasing from the backside, closing on stretch and outside zones, shooting the gaps on run fits and blitzes. His stop total suggests he was often inning plays at or near the line, not just cleaning up down the field. So that's really positive and encouraging. I definitely see the way he played this year showing a lot of trust in his knee. He's definitely NFL caliber with his range as a will linebacker. This all indicates he can be a net positive early down defender moving forward for the remainder of his career. Now, with coverage performance, I think he needs a little bit of improvement in this game. His passer rating allowed is 121.3, which is well above the league average, but he only has 2 pressures, which is pretty limited impact as a blitzer. And he misses tackles more than he should be at this level. I think he's got at least 2 missed tackles, I think is what I said. And he needs to work on his spacing and angles just a little bit as a linebacker, but that's also contingent on having another strong linebacker beside him. A lot of times when you're playing that outside linebacker, you can get left on an island and having to clean up messes one-on-one, especially on stretch plays and throws into the flat.
Yeah.
So I think what this all means is late reactions in the zone drops causes separation allowed on crossing routes and hesitation when trying to determine what the play is going to be and where he needs to go. I think he has some coverage rust after 343 days off, especially for a linebacker whose game relies on burst and change of direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way the game was called, he was protected with a lot of shallow zone calls, a lot of hook curl responsibilities, and limited man coverage on tight ends and running backs. Overall, on his coverage as a linebacker right now, I give him a below average grade. I think he had a severe injury, a very low snap count. He didn't get a lot of games. He only played 7, and it was a midseason return after the bye week. So he missed a lot. He
Yeah.
missed the entire offseason, which definitely made an impact to him. Um, I think it'll work itself out next year. I know this sounds kind of negative towards him, but it's not meant to be. It's just the reality of what it is. So right now, I think his overall grade is a B,
Okay.
is where I'm going to put the Marvian. I definitely think he's an A quality player. I just think it's going to take him a little bit longer to make the impact that we're used to getting from him
Mm-hmm.
as the next season comes around. My projection for him going forward is the run defense should definitely be stabilized first, and then coverage improvement hinges on his confidence. It's
Yeah.
not an athletic thing with him. It's just him getting back into form, which just is going to require more time. It takes a full season to play at your best, and he just needs more time in the game to do that. I expect big jumps next year in zone awareness, tackling in space, and pass breakups.
Awesome. So you're looking at for Overshown necessarily that B grade is for what he played in. Nothing like goes into effect for his injury or anything like that.
No, that's simply for just what he produced this year,
Okay.
both statistically and from the film study that I did.
Yeah.
Just watching his plays. One of the positions I'm most familiar with is linebacker, as you are. We're both relatively familiar with that. So I just looked at it from that perspective. But with the statistics, his snaps he doesn't have a lot, so I'm giving him a little bit of grace because I know who he is and I know what he can do when he's at peak performance.
Yeah.
But I just think because of the defensive scheme and the fact that we didn't have a consistent group out there all year, you're coming in off of an injury. You're trying to play your best. It's messy. You're going off of sheer instinct and talent. And for somebody doing that, man, I think he did really, really well. But if you grade him for what the league requires to have a successful playoff caliber defense, he definitely needs to improve in the passing game. He made huge impacts when he needed to in the running game, but very, very minimal in the passing game there.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Did you in looking at him as a player, did you have any thoughts or comments from your perspective?
No, I mean, when we're talking about Overshown, right, as you can see there on our chart, I mean, he's a third-round pick from the 2023 draft. He got injured in his first preseason. We finally get him back, in 2024, and he shows a really good rookie campaign. He didn't play in the regular season of his actual rookie year, but he had a really good rookie campaign in 2024 until he got hurt again. So for him, it's not necessarily the talent or the ability that he has at the linebacker position. It's all about staying healthy and staying on the field. I think
Sure.
when you've seen him play, he's an impact player. I think a lot of people, after that 2024 year, compared him to being, the next incoming of Fred Warner's of the world, being a Roquan Smith for the team.
Yeah.
His speed is super special. I mean, his ability to trail quarterbacks, his ability to spy quarterbacks, his ability to be able to drop and pass coverage really fast or be able to be like our Micah Parsons Jr. now, being able to blitz up the middle and stuff is ability that Dallas needs at the linebacker position.
Yeah.
Now, and we'll get into it, but, who do we pair with this man to be able to give the best ability for our linebacker core to be able to win games single-handedly? But for Overshown, it's all about staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, you're going to get that B to A player. I think he gets to an A grade if he's on the field for a whole year.
No, I 100% agree. And I kind of look at him as one of those guys that's like a free safety that plays in the linebacker position.
Yep.
You don't want him tied down to too many assignments because then you go against what he's naturally gifted to do, and that's to just seek and destroy. You remember last year him blazing side to side, just protecting both boundaries. It was an amazing thing to watch.
Yep.
And now this year he's coming off an injury. It's late. He's getting into the season. He's starting to get his legs back under him, and he's playing in a defense that has a lot of confusion. They don't know where they're supposed to be and who's supposed to be doing what. And he's just trying to take care of his responsibility. And like you said, I think that just kind of goes against what is in his nature in his skill set. So I think that had an impact on him. But yeah, 100% next year. I think he'll get back. I think out of the linebackers, he's obviously the safest one,
Yep.
and the one that we really are kind of hoping to build the defense around, essentially. All right, so we're going to move right on, and we'll go into that second position, sitting behind DeMarvion Overshone, which is going to be Maurice Luafau, who this is his first year. He's 24 years old. He was a third-round pick in last year's draft. He was available for the entire season, and he didn't always start, but when he was in the game, he produced 16 solo tackles, 2 assists, 1 forced fumble. I remember that. 1 sack, and he actually had 6 total pressures. I think they kind of used him pretty often in that NASCAR package where it was just blitzing off the end. Did a good job at it. I think this young man has a lot of potential. I just think it's about maturing and gaining some of that experience. Now, on his run defense performance, he had 4 stops, which is kind of modest. The 1 forced fumble, 7 missed tackles, right? Which is an elevated miss rate relative to tackle totals. That's not really a good thing. What all that means is Luafau's run defense was inconsistent, kind of on a snap-to-snap basis. When he did arrive where he was assigned to be on time, he finished with force, often, making a great tackle. Remember the forced fumble that he had, and then you see what kind of impact he can bring when he knows where he's going and he's got you locked in. With especially on special teams, we've seen him do those things. The missed tackles kind of suggest that he needs some pad level work and that he may have trouble disengaging from his blocks. And he does tend to over pursue at times. All of this kind of says that his ability is there. The physical intent to do harm is there. That's kind of his gift, is he just goes like a bullet. But it's the efficiency and finishing that really needs improvement. And I think he's best suited for gap sound, limited range run defense. So he's just kind of like almost like a bigger Wilson. He's really good around the line of scrimmage and he can do damage there. But if it's coverage, pass coverage especially, he may not be able to make those kind of one-on-one plays. But in the croc, he's doing just fine. Now, pass coverage, he did allow a passer rating of 134.4, which considering is pretty high.
Yeah.
Coverage is his biggest liability. He has late reads in zone drops. He allowed a lot of separation underneath, covering, tight ends and running backs. He has a limited recovery speed. Now, he is bursty in the short distance, but his recovery speed is not the best when he, and I think that's more from just he's a little slow yet diagnosing what the play is. So by the time he realizes where he needs to be, he's got to try to make up ground, and he just doesn't have the kind of speed to do that. I think he was targeted when he was on the field and not being used as a blitzer or a gap filler. I think, they took advantage of him on some of those plays. I give his zone coverage a below average grade. I think he needs protection via a scheme, and he's definitely not a linebacker that you're going to match up intentionally with a tight end or a running back to go down the field against. From me, just with his skill sets and what I saw from the tape just for this year, I think he's best kept in a shallow zone or around the line of scrimmage as a spy. I don't think he needs to be on the field for really long downs, like if it's a 3rd and 12 or something like that. I think he's someone you pull off the field for that. Now, he does have blitz and pressure impact. He had 6 pressures and 1 sack, which is pretty efficient for the amount of snaps that he had this year. He shows really good timing when it comes to a blitz, great angles, good effort. He knows how to delay his pressure so that the blocks all get to where they're supposed to be, which leaves him a lane to the quarterback to be disruptive in the backfield. This is the area where his value most clearly exceeds baseline expectations. So blitz verdict, is basically above effective. It grades pretty well.
Yeah.
So all this, his run defense is a C, his zone coverage or coverage altogether is pretty much a D, and his blitz impact is a B. So for me, I'm going to give Maurice Luafau a C grade as a will linebacker based on what he's shown this year.
Okay, I like that. With Marius Lufau, here's the biggest thing for me. I mean, it's he's super energetic. He's super fast. He's got a lot of a kind of that overshown aspect that we just talked about with him. He bounces around a lot. His biggest thing is he needs to maybe learn to slow the game down a little bit of his ability to figure out how to read plays a little bit better. And that just takes with time, playing, and experience, right? This guy wasn't a first rounder. This guy was acquired again in the third round in this past, or not this past draft, but the draft before. So again, this is kind of a project kind of thing. I think anybody outside the first 2 rounds are kind of all projects, right? These are guys that take time. They need to be under a consistent defensive coordinator, learn a consistent scheme, or they're always going to be behind the 8 ball because they don't have that consistency to grow their skills. You go from Mike Zimmer to Matt Eberflus and now somebody else who may change up everything again, which it may suit him better, right? I don't think anybody on this defense is benefiting from the zone scheme at all. So a man scheme, being able to say, hey, this is your job. This running back is your job on the read option. You've got the quarterback or whatever, right? You understand that better than being like, hey, you've got this area. And then, if no one's in that area, you got to come forward and spy the QB. But if the QB's not going to scramble, you got to drop back again. Whatever the confusion or one word, simple terms that Eberflus and them are using that did not work at all. That being said, I like the C grade. I think it's fair because his impact on when you're looking at a linebacker position has not really been impactful. You couldn't give him a B or an A because you haven't seen enough of him on the field. Right. Now, if we were including his special teams ability, we could probably bump it up to a B, right? But for this, we are looking at positional skill. So this isn't like, hey, we're going to bump you up because, you've got that awesome special teams. Obviously, I think he deserves to stay on this roster for his special teams talent. But for now, the C grade fits him very well. I think you did a good job with that.
Yeah, there's not a ton of players that get drafted that automatically start and achieve from day one and are never finding themselves not starting. You know what I mean? It's very rare. He's young, and the good signs is they know how to use him, because what he is good at, they use him for that and he succeeds. That is a key thing. When somebody knows that your talent is this and they send you out there to execute your talent and you execute and you produce a result, that just confirms what they saw in you and what your ability and skill set is. And I think that's what they're doing with him now. As you get older, you learn more with experience, and you can use those skills to improve in those categories. And just like any other player, he's going to improve. There may be a period of time where he's the starting middle linebacker or the starting Will or the starting Sam. It just takes time. This is his very first outing. And I think for what we have in him, he's definitely making an impact, and he'll only continue to grow and get better. But yeah, looking at him as a special teamer, man, he's dangerous out there. You do not want to hit that guy one-on-one because he's going to cause you some pain. And that's a good thing. So if we can and you're starting to see a trend here with our linebackers, and I think that's kind of the problem. All right, so we're gonna keep moving right along here. We're gonna head on over to the middle linebacker.
You want me to do the strong safeties, or
go for it, man? Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Give you a little break here. Let you catch your breath. I know you love breaking it down. So
yeah, man, it's awesome.
let me let you catch your breath here, and we'll kind of, if you want to, since you got the screen, if you want to scroll down to the strong safeties, we'll start with Donovan Wilson.
Okay.
All right. Well, while he's getting that set up, what we'll do is we're going to start with the strong safeties here. Obviously, we know that the safeties are our biggest weak point, as we know of. Our whole secondary as a whole, we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of answers that we need to get to. So let's start with Donovan Wilson, man. You know, he's a 7-year vet who's been a Cowboy his whole entire career. I think he joined us in 2019. He has been someone who has fought their way up and down this roster. And Donovan Wilson is an upcoming free agent for this 2026 free agency that we're about to have here. And honestly, I don't know if this is a guy that Dallas may want to hold on to. I don't think this is anything personal on his standpoint between him and the Cowboys, but let me give you some things of why Dallas may be able to look to move on from him if there's better options for the same price point or being able to go draft somebody. So I use PFF grades. They grade Donovan Wilson a 54.2 overall for the 2025 season. Obviously, you know, the Cowboys defense is coming off of a rough 2024 and 2025 season when it comes to pass defending and not being able to help out the front seven, get some extra time to get home so we can create some lost yards of plays. When we talk about Donovan Wilson, there's nobody really thinks of him as a deep safety pass defender like a Reed Blankenship, a Kevin Byard, or a Kyle Hamilton. But what he is good at is being inside the box, right? Dallas has seen his ability to be inside the box as an extra linebacker or as someone who can drop into there to be able to stop the run, be a run stuffing guy, or be able to blitz or be able to add some extra leverage if we know that a run play is coming. Unfortunately, Donovan Wilson and what Dallas is not looking for is a safety who can spend all their time within the box. And Dallas really needs somebody who can, you know, be that over the top safety, be somebody who can be a ball hawking safety, somebody who can stay over the top of speedy receivers, who can help and bail out corners, who can have that sideline to sideline speed when they're running those corner routes or being able to run those post routes. And I think that's something Donovan Wilson lacks in, as we have seen over the past couple of years. And it's just not what he was meant to do. When we got him, anytime he made the play, it was always within the box, covering running backs, being able to get downhill, make those hard-hitting plays. He's not really somebody I see as those over-the-top guys like I mentioned from before. Especially in this Eberflus scheme, it feels like Donovan Wilson is always out of position when he's not inside the box doing what our linebackers are doing, right? It seems like he's always getting burnt. He seems like on crossing routes, anything that's post routes, he's always either behind what's going on or being able to get caught in that traffic and not having that ability to understand what is going on. Just to give you some stats about what I mean for that, opposing QBs have a passer rating of a 134.2 when he is in coverage. Personally, like I said, when I remember Wilson as a Cowboys fan, it's not for his over-the-top skills. It's going to be for being inside the box, making big plays in the running game, and sending heat on passing plays. As I said from before, he's approaching 30 and is getting up there in age. And I think if the options are available to move on from Wilson, Dallas may be wise to do so at this moment. Dallas needs more of a pass coverage safety and not somebody to stop the run. If he will come back on a deal to return that's cheap and fair, I'm all for it. I'm not looking to get rid of him, but I think it's definitely a time to move on from him if you find better options. So for this, I'm going to give him a D. Unfortunately, with what's happened this past couple of years, no one in our secondary probably is going to be an A or a B. There hasn't been any strong points to be able to point at with this, but for Donovan Wilson, that's where I'm at with it. How you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with anything you said. You know, I think that for what you described him as, we have enough of that on the team. You know what I mean? I think we have those in the box guys that can assess the run and are very physical and good in close range. And we just don't need any more of that. What we're lacking for, if you're listening to what we're breaking down on these players, we're lacking for the guys who can assess what's going on, make a read, and get across the field to make a play and do it quickly. So you've got to break down and have a good ability to read and then close in on coverage and make a play on the ball. And that's where we're struggling. And that's where we were beaten all year long, was not being able to close the gap on the receivers when the offense was spread out. You know, we're effective around the goal line, around the line of scrimmage, but outside the flats and up the sides and the seams, we struggled.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where Jerry Jones has bolstered that front seven pretty good in this past
Sure.
year, adding Quinn Williams and Logan Wilson, and getting Overshown back healthy and seeing his ability to still be able to play. So you're not really needing a starting safety to be somebody who needs to be mainly inside the box or somebody who needs to be a run stuffing safety. I trust in our front seven with a little bit more help in that linebacker core to be able to get something together to be able to handle themselves there. We need somebody who can stay over the top, who can bail our corners out if they get burnt, or be able to be a ball hawking kind of safety compared to what we're getting at Donovan Wilson right at this moment.
Right. And if he has that ability to where, if you're playing a really physical team who likes to operate around the line of scrimmage, and he can come down into the box and make a difference, that's great. But you don't want that to be his primary, to the point where we're lacking in what the position really calls for as a player.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
So what I'll do is I'll finish off the strong safeties, and then I'll let you take back over. And then
Sure. Yeah.
when you take back over, we need, if you want to, after I do Marquise Bell here, I'm going to give my overall positional grade for the safeties, and
Okay.
then we'll go from there.
Sure.
All right, guys. So Marquise Bell, he is, if you don't know him already, he's an undrafted free agent that Dallas picked up after the 2022 draft. He's from Florida A&M. Most of you Dallas fans, we're going to remember Bell as a undrafted free agent I'm sorry, not undrafted free agent. I already said that, but we're going to remember him mostly for his 2023 campaign when Dan Quinn had to use him as a linebacker due to injuries. Dallas was suffering at the position. Bell had a 3-year, $12 million contract, which was well-deserved, by the way. I think that was a great deal for Dallas to be able to bring him back after the campaign he had in the past 2 years and be able to keep that depth for special teams and as well as the safety position. Bell has been productive and has done whatever the team has asked of him to do so. So let's start with what he provides at that safety level, and then we can talk about his versatility and why it may be good for the Cowboys to keep around. After the 2023 season, Bell was primarily used as a safety position in the linebacker in emergency situation, or if the scheme was related to rolling him down, kind of similar to what we're doing with Donovan Wilson. When the scheme calls for it, we roll him down in the box and we give him that ability to be able to be that run stuffing guy. Obviously, he's been proven in that 2023 season as a linebacker, but he's a little bit undersized for that. And that's kind of what led to our downfall there. But looking at PFF, his overall grade was a 46.7 with 354 snaps. Some of his stats were 24 solo tackles. He's had an interception, and he's allowed 14 receptions. The opposing QB's passer rating when he's in coverage is a 104.4 with 12.4 yards allowed per reception. Now, this being said, the Dallas defense, again, when it comes to this whole secondary, I'm going to say this every time, it has not looked good overall between 2024 to 2025. So it's hard to really truly grade these guys because I feel like the scheme hasn't been there to benefit them. When Dan Quinn was in town, these were his guys. These were his kind of people that he built his scheme around. So you had the ability to be able to kind of work around things like that. One of the things that I'll also mention here is the last time he really played linebacker was in 2023, and under Dan Quinn, Bell was able to record 94 tackles with 2 forced fumbles. Bell being 6'3" and 205 can provide flexibility on our roster, and with this cheaper contract, Dallas should not look to cut him, get rid of him, trade him, or anything like that. I think he could be somebody that can keep growing under a new DC, and maybe we can find a way to develop him into a better role playing safety as a backup, come in for a couple snaps here, or if someone were to get hurt, fill in for a game or two. But he is not, let me repeat this. He is not the answer for Dallas as a starting safety when looking at the 2026 season. So that's kind of my development for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are all very, very fair remarks. Looking at our secondary and where we're at with the talent and how we acquired it, you know, this is this is not where we need to be at the safety position,
Yeah.
right? We have no growth. We have, no development coming up in that spot. We're struggling there. And there's other contributions, with special teams and, certain packages that may be presented on defense, but you still have to think for the long term of the team and who's going to take that spot next. And I think that's kind of where we're struggling across the entire defense. So, yeah, I know he's a try hard guy and he does really well, but I've seen enough things to feel like it's definitely a position that needs some freshening.
Yeah, so like I said, he's going to get a grade, player grade of a D, and then overall grade for the safeties is a D. I mean, these two guys are just one of them, your starter, and Wilson, he's just out of what feels like to be in the wrong scheme and being used wrong. He's not being able to do what his ability is, which is be inside that box, be able to provide that run support. And then if he calls for, being a pass play every now and then, if it's a play action, but this, being in every passing play, being that starting safety for all 3 downs, 4 downs during a drive, is
Yeah,
really hurting Dallas. His ability to stay over the top to help our young corners is not there right now. And it could be something that develops, but I don't think it will be after being in the league for 6 years. Marquise Bell,
yeah,
he's just been a guy, a utility knife that we've been able to use over the past couple of years. But again, look at the strong safety position. I think this is where you were kind of heading before I interrupted you during your linebackers is right here in our strong safeties. We have nothing better than a 6th-round pick. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's talent everywhere, but you wonder why sometimes we struggle after these guys get older and stuff. You start to see them slow down a little bit, and then they're
right.
not able to make up for it. So you need, like you said, to freshen up the board. We need to freshen up this position with some good talent. So
Yeah, as a guy who likes racing, I've always heard the term there's no replacement for displacement. And
yep,
what that means is the size of the motor, the natural motor in the car, it makes a difference. You can bolt all kinds of stuff on it to make it faster, but what you have when you start, there's no replacement for that. You know, a big V8 is always going to be able to outperform a V6 with a bunch of bolt-ons, right? So it's just one of those things where having that natural ability is always going to be your base platform. That's where you're going to start from,
yeah.
and you have to be able to grow from there. And I just don't think we have growth in that position. So let me ask you this: do you look at this as a position where we maybe need to acquire some new talent?
Yes. I haven't done a deep dive into who's coming into the free agency portion of safeties. Obviously Wilson is an upcoming unrestricted free agent for this upcoming free agency, so he can be somebody who walks away and goes to another team, or Dallas could look to retain him. But when you're looking at draft, man, I would give anything to go get Caleb Downs. I know he's probably going to go in the top 5, top 6. If he falls any further than that, I would be shocked. But I don't think we have the draft capital to go get somebody without trading both our 1st-round picks, and I don't know if that is worth because I would have to do a deeper dive. But man,
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
50
get to
for
all
him.
that, and we'll talk about all those options. We'll save that for when it's a little bit more realistic, and we kind of know one
Where
who our
people are
defensive
falling.
coordinator is going to be, and what we're looking for in our defense for the future. So, if you're thinking, and I agree with you, we both agree that this is a position that we probably need to change the talent out in. Is there
Yep.
any way you can make that H box there red?
Yeah, give me one moment. I got
Yeah,
you.
no worries. Perfect. All right. So scrolling back up here, I think because of the ability to potentially develop Maurice Luafau, which is what is intended to happen, and the fact that DeMarvion Overshone is such a capable linebacker who's shown what he can do when he's 100% healthy, and the scheme is solid. And I say solid because I don't even think the scheme was really all that clear. So it's hard to play in a game when you don't know what the rules are.
Yep.
I will give the will linebacker position a B grade, mainly because of how well DeMarvion Overshown has played that position since he's been in Dallas. And I think that's pretty much the only thing that saves it right now. Hopefully, that only improves. Next year, DeMarvion's an A grade player and Maurice is a B grade player, or even a specialized A grade player, and then we're okay there. But I think looking at it the way it is right now, I think we have enough talent to have success at the will linebacker.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you've definitely got guys who are going to develop and be a part of something that could be great. I think you have someone who's the starter and solidified starter in Overshown, and then Leofau just needs opportunity, and the sky's the limit for that will linebacker group at the moment.
All right. So what we're going to end up doing is, we're starting to stretch out on time a little bit here. We could do this all night because Slater and I both really love doing this kind of work, and it's fun to talk about your team, talk about your players, and really look at what we need instead of just fantasizing about what we can do in the draft. We have to come familiar with the tools and resources we have before we can make a legitimate plan.
Yep.
If you're down, Slater, I think we can call it a night on these, and we can pick right back up in a few nights with the next one. And I'll be moving on to the middle linebacker position, and I think you are also going to cover the safeties. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll do free safeties next for me, and then you continue on with the linebackers. You're definitely gonna have more position groups to do.
Yes.
Mine will just be more of I guess the corners after that. After I do the free safeties, I'll do all the corners.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully what we'll end up with at the end of this is you'll have really, really good information. You'll know your team really, really well, what they've done, what they need to do, what they're good at, and then we'll be able to kind of know where we're weak and what we need to be doing in free agency and the draft. And we'll start looking at free agency, right as the year ends, of course, and then we'll get you prepared for the draft with a good game plan. So please like and subscribe. Let us know if you like this content, you like the way we did it and the way we presented it. Give us the feedback. We'll surely appreciate it, and we'll be prepared for the next one. Slater, you got anything?
No, man. Like he just said, man. Comment, like, subscribe. If you got questions about what we're saying, if you want to challenge what we're saying, we're all here for it. We're here for a good debate, and we're just here to figure out how to, get the correct tools in the building, so then our Dallas Cowboys can break a 31-year drought streak to get to an NFC championship.
Yes, sir.
So until next time, y'all. This is the Cowboys game plan.